Hey guys, Tarke Cat here. Hi guys, Badger here. I've forgotten how Badger talks. And I'm going to be playing a Petrified Blood low-life Ice Trapper, and it just so happens that Badger played a boring, not Petrified Blood, not low-life Ice Trapper as his League Starter 317, which I'll show you a little bit of gameplay now. So if you don't like my silly low-life version, then click on this link I'll leave down below and play his normal, less interesting version, which is still actually very good. So, why am I going Petrified Blood, and what even is Petrified Blood? I'm also going to leave a link to this video down below, which perfectly explains how Petrified Blood and works and all those nice things. Basically, it's an aura, which means you take a big hit, and then 40% of that hit you don't take. You're like, oh, that sounds amazing. But 76% of that hit that got prevented, you take as a dot. So basically, it's just this interesting way of taking damage. If you scale your build correctly, it can be a big boon defensively. A lot of people argue, is it kind of just like a wash? The main reason I'm taking it is it lets me press this fun little button here, paying achievement, to get 30% more spell damage. More damage? Mace, basically I'm doing it to deal more damage. But I'm also taking it because there's been some interesting new uniques that have come out this league. Specifically, the Burden of Truth crystal belt, which was designed by Lighty, which is a very interesting belt for this kind of hybrid playstyle, which gives you the Supreme Decadence node, alongside just a bunch of really nice things for this kind of a build, which means that life recovery from flask also apply to energy shield, reduced recovery from flask. You're like, okay, well, that seems kind of whatever. But because we're always on low life, you get to run panicked life flask, which means boom, you're instantly getting like 2k life, 2k ES, and like, oh, that sounded pretty good. And yeah, this is actually a pretty solid build. So Ice Trap is very good at permanently freezing everything. So in terms of defensive layers, we permanently freeze everything. We have a potentially relatively high effective maximum hit point taken for a Tarke build first couple of days of the league in SF with no like fancy crazy gearing, any weird unique interactions or anything like that. We get to leverage very high life regen to offset the dots we'll be getting from Petrified Blood. You're then like, oh, but what do you do about like just traditional dots? Because aren't you really weak to just traditional dots because you only have 2.9k life unreserved? Well, we then get to make use of Leaf Shade. Worth noting, this doesn't affect Petrified Blood. But this does affect just other normal dots, which gives us take 50% less damage over time if you've started taking damage over time in the past second. So say we stand in a caustic ground, we take 50% less damage straight away. You can also match that with some Pantheon stuff to make you immune for stuff. You've got stuff like Arakali, which gives you increased chaos resistance damage over time, reduced damage taken from damage over time, increased recovery rate if you've stopped taking damage over time. Increased recovery rate is really strong when you then have really high life regen. You're sort of seeing the layers. We're like, okay, but Tarke, if you've got really low life, then you're going to get stunned a lot. And I'm like, haha, but I'm immune to stun, so I don't get stunned. And you're like, okay, but Tarke, if you've got low life, you're going to get frozen for a long time. But what if I told you that I'm immune to freeze because I'm the only person running Arctic Armor this year? Yeah, so because we're a Saboteur, we're running Arctic Armor. We're also freeze immune, shock immune, and ignite immune, thanks to Pyromaniac, and ignite is another dot we don't need to worry about. So straight up, we get to kind of solve a lot of the initial problems with running a Petrified Blood low life setup. We get to have a bunch of life. We get to mess around with some interesting new unique items coming. And it's just something a little bit different. I've played a lot of Ice Trap in the past. I last played it in Ultimatum League. I haven't played a hit-based crit trapper in a while. And I just wanted to do something which is just a little bit different so it can be fresh and exciting for me. We're not doing a repeat of last league where I went too out there with a build I hadn't played before and it really under-delivered. The other thing which is really nice about this setup is if I do decide, for whatever reason, that I don't like Petrified Blood, basically I just cut everything from there and it's a normal trapper tree. Like that's it. The other thing which is really good about this build from an SSF perspective is it's incredibly flexible based on the gear that drops. So let's say that I don't get any really cool cold items, so I get a bunch of really insane like lightning daggers or like a really good crit multi +1 lightning gem amulet or fire damage or whatever. I just take out the ice trap and I slot in lightning trap or explosive trap. Very flexible. If I want to go explosive trap, I can get a full 100% elemental conversion through 2 sources. I can go down to Winter Spirit and then take 40% of Fizz converted to cold damage, and then craft conversion on gloves for the remaining 10%. Or I can come up to Heart of Flame and take the 40% of Fizz converted to fire damage there to then get the fire. Lots of options, very flexible, very cozy, should be good. Now, this is primarily built as like a hybrid style character. We do have like roughly just under 3k life unreserved, 1.2k life regen, 2k energy shield, ghost dance, a whole bunch of evasion rating. This is also without flask, by the way. And then I've included a early leveling tree, and I've included like a mid-game tree. But you're like, okay, Tarke, I want to run determination. I don't want to go spell suppression. I want to go block. What are you going to do then? Well, I actually found someone who did exactly that this league. So Duresso's Courage is actually a really strong item for this build, and a fairly common item to boot. So if I did happen to get this dropping for me very early on in SF, I would consider going for a tree similar to this guy's, where you basically skedaddle through Witch into Templar, you go for a bunch of armor investment, a bunch of armor scaling, and suddenly you've got Divine Shield, you're getting loads of really good ES regen that way. Might have matters because he's doing Glorious Vanity memes, but you've got a really good conversion spot for a Timeless Jewel here. Very strong from a trade league perspective. You've got great access to cluster jewels. We'll leave a link to this one down below as well. So basically I've got a very, very flexible setup, which all seems really good. So I guess I'll talk through the basic gearing, and that kind of wraps everything up quite neatly. So keep in mind, this is all gear I've planned around stuff that I know I can craft in an SF environment in the first like 3 to 5 days of a league. I like to use platinum crisses because, well, just any kind of criss. I like to have the crit implicit. Spell damage, spell crit, +1 gem, that's your minimum. Ideally, you get a bunch of additional flat damage to gems on top of there. Crit chance of spells, life, +1 cold skill gems. And then all the armor is basically life, evasion, energy shield, spell suppression till cap. And actually, flat life regen is a really solid mod now, and fairly common. So if I pick up a couple of like flat 50 life regen or 100 life regen, very, very happy. The only really notable thing is the craft you get unlocked from Syndicate. Gain 10% of maximum life as extra maximum energy shield. Super strong. Ideally, you throw this on like an incursion chest with life and percent life or something. But yeah, you're looking for something with some evasion, maybe some energy shield, maybe some spell suppress, maybe some trash life regen. Shove that on there. You're feeling good. Now, if you don't want to lean as hard into the hybrid as I have, like you don't want like 2k energy shield, you're happy with just like 1,000 energy shield and ghost dance, then get this one mod alone and then have the rest of your gear be either armor evasion or pure evasion. Same deal on the gloves, life, energy shield, evasion, whatever. Boots, I've just gone for cap your movement speed, get your life. Notable boot enchants, you've got a few different options. I think Pen is probably going to be the strongest one. I'm predicting a lot of enemy resistances with the upcoming league, with the new Arch Nemesis mods in particular. Normally for trap builds, I recommend the 120% crit chance if you haven't crit recently, because traps aren't you, that doesn't count as critting. But, you know, you will actually crit when you put down like your Hydrosphere or your Frost Bomb to apply your exposure. And until you get a way to like automate exposure, say like Eldritch implicits on gloves or something, you want to have that stuff in your gear. And this is something you just never need to worry about. It's very easy, and I'm expecting it to be very strong. Alternatively, you can settle for flat damage. So I think it's up to 160 flat lightning damage if you haven't killed recently. But the Pen would be the one to go for. For your amulet, minimum life +1 cold gems. Ideally, throw some crit multi in there. Feeling good about life. For the rings, the only mod I really care about is getting that damage recoup. Really important to get some recoup in the build. Very good natural synergy with this whole Petrified blood setup I'm going for. If I feel like I need more recoup, I have access to Vampirism for just a couple of points. I have access to Infused Flesh. It's a very cheap anoint, actually. Just amber, indigo, and black. I'm currently just anointing Divine Judgment in the SSF early on. Just want those cheap anoints, which will give you a nice bunch of either offensive or defensive power. And then the Stygian Visor, I think, is probably the only interesting other gear slot. So if you use Essences of Zeal, you get increased trap and mine throwing speed, which stacks with increased trap throwing speed, which is a craft from the bench. So very easy to get essences because you just spec into essence on the outer skill tree, get a whole bunch of Essence of Zeals, throw them into Stygian Visors, and wait until you get an open suffix. Craft double trap throwing speed on there. Feeling good about life. Do recommend having a Hypnotic Jaw with some flat fire damage to spells, just because the whole like burning thing from the Ascendancy. But you don't even have to worry about that if you're going for the Giga Skitterbot setup that I am running. In terms of your flasks, pretty standard. Quicksilver for movement speed, Jade Flask for evasion, Granite Flask for armor, Quartz Flask for phasing. Because we have complete ailment immunity, you've got quite a lot of flexibility in what like suffixes you run in your flask. You can go for reduced curse effect on there, or you can roll over curse mods, curse maps. Otherwise, go for increased evasion, increased armor, increased movement speed, stuff like that. In terms of jewels, ideally life, multi, trap throwing speed. Otherwise, like life double damage, life double multi, or whatever. If you have access to any really cool, crazy new jewels from any of the bosses, chuck them into the build. Tree is pretty straightforward, so I don't really need to explain that too much. Let's go through our links. So, Ice Trap, Swift Assembly. Swift Assembly is, since the damage nerfs, better than Cluster Trap in most cases. The upside of Cluster Trap is Cluster Trap always throws additional traps, so you'll get smoother, more consistent map clear with it. Some people choose to just run Cluster Trap over Swift Assembly for that, smoother experience there. If you're finding the map clear a little bit spotty, run Cluster Trap over Swift Assembly. Charge Traps. Charge Traps just gives us a whole bunch of trap throwing speed per Frenzy Charge, mostly there for mapping. For bossing, I would actually replace this with Trap and Mine damage, which you'll notice I don't run. It's a pretty big jump, 343k hit to 518k hit. Pretty slight, oh, that was the wrong one, sorry. 293 to 443, sorry. Still a massive jump, but anyway. Life Tap is how we're doing our mana. Everything is life tapped except for Steel Skin. That allows us to proc Arcane Surge through the Steel Skin. Cold Pen to get through that nasty cold res. Increase crit strikes to get our crit chance nice and high, so we're reliably freezing enemies. If you happen to have a really high crit chance, you feel like you didn't need it, drop it, run something else, but I want to have above 90% crit chance. I'm going to be running crit strikes myself. Bear Trap, Siphoning Trap, Life Trap. Bear Trap makes enemies take more damage from traps. You only use this on really scary bosses. Don't need to worry about it for anything else. Siphoning Trap, you just chuck it down. You get a whole bunch of regen. It's actually really strong. Just one enemy affected by Siphoning Trap, 400 life regen. That's like 2 level 20 vitalities. Super strong. Chuck it down before you do like a Breach, Religion, and if you're fighting like Maven, chuck down the Siphoning Trap. You're chilling. Our auras are Grace, Petrified Blood, Defiance Banner. Again, because we're running Petrified Blood, we can't afford to fit Determination. If you happen to get a bunch of gear which mess with your mana reservations, you could fit it in there. I don't have access to that for week 1 of SSF. And if you want to play the armor version, use the PB Ninja link I showed. Steel Skin link to Arcane Surge to proc our Arcane Surge, and to obviously have Steel Skin for a nice guard skill, more effective life. Arctic Armor linked to Arrogance. Arctic Armor is giving that freeze immune. It's giving us that nice mitigation. Stand still when you throw a trap. That's some mitigation. Good. Summon Skitterbots. The Giga Skitterbots. Skitterbots links to Unbound Ailments. Unbound Ailments means the Skitterbots chill harder and they shock harder. Bone Chill means that enemies chilled by our Skitterbots take more cold damage. Ice Trap does cold damage. Pretty good. Infernal Legion guarantees that enemies are burning. If you have flat fire damage somewhere on your gear, when you crit an enemy, you will ignite them. You can actually drop this for a little bit more mana. I didn't really have anything to do with the extra mana, so I thought it better just to guarantee that we're definitely burning enemies. But this is something that you can drop. And if you decide not to go Explosive Expert, if you feel like you have enough damage and you want the extra clear from the extra AoE of Chain Reaction, then make sure you definitely drop it, because you're not gaining anything from having enemies burning otherwise. Assassin's Mark, Life Tap, Frostbomb, Arcanist Brand. You drop the Arcanist Brand, that will mark the boss. It will drop the Frostbomb, meaning they're exposed. As I said, if you get exposed from like Eldritch Gloves or a Ritual Helmet or whatever, drop the Frost Bomb straight away. That'll be the first thing I ditch from the build. Ideally, we get rid of these two nasty things, so we have Assassin's Mark Life Tap, and then Divine Blessing Hatred. So basically, Divine Blessing Hatred means that when we press our Hatred, it costs us a bunch of life, because it's life tapped, and we gain a very nice chunk of damage. Now, I'm not sure if that actually works in this build, because we're reserving a bunch of our life. So it really depends on just how it maths out with our like reduced reservation and all that other stuff. If we can fit the Hatred in, great. If it takes us to like 1 health, not something I'm going to include in the build. So I haven't factored it into any of my damage or anything. But if it does work and it did fit in neatly and I didn't feel like I was just instantly dying whenever I pressed it, then you'd gain a bunch of damage. But to be honest, this probably isn't going to stay. Most likely not going there. Don't really worry about it too much. But anyway, I'm Tarke. Let me know if you've messed around with any of these sort of Petrified Blood low life trappers in the past. Very curious to hear your thoughts on it. And in general, let me know what your league's starting. It's always interesting to see new builds. I'll leave a link to everything down below, including the Lighty Belt, the Armour version of the build, the Petrified Blood explained video, and the Badger, boring, traditional, but actually works and is tried and tested softcore trade version of the build. I'm Tarke. Have a great day. Best of luck come league start. Bye-bye.